Welcome to the second episode of the Black Agenda Live. We're coming to you today. I have my co-host, as usual, here with me, Adrian. And Adrian, we got a lot of different things to get to. So, I'm excited. Our second episode going live.
Yeah, Devin, I feel that this is going to be really good. I'm very excited that we're doing these live episodes of our weekly roundup just to help viewers and listeners, put a face to a name and a voice to make things happen. And like you said, we've got a lot to cover today. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The first thing we wanted to cover today, viewers, was the update with Kenosha. We kind of have a competing view from, presumptive nominee Joe Biden and his candidacy with Kamala and, of course, Donald Trump making his appearance there. We do know from MSN.com that Joe Biden actually met privately with the Jacob Blake family. Unfortunately, Donald Trump did not meet with Jacob's family. So that sparked a little bit of controversy, a little bit of issues there because we have, the one that's in the White House supposed to be setting the example. But instead, when he went to Kenosha, he just kind of, laid that law and order message down, and didn't even make an attempt to go to Jacob Blake and speak with him in the hospital or his family, where you have Joe Biden, made the initiative to go and talk to clergy member, activists, police officials, first responders. So you see a totally different stance on where we're supposed to be at in this issue. Anytime you hear Donald talks about it, it's law and order. Anytime you hear Joe Biden talks about it, it's law and order, but we also need to do some police reform. So Devin, that's kind of how it is right now. I'll let you pick up on that.
Right, and I think what you see between Biden and Trump is you see a very different strategy. Like you say, Trump is definitely on the law and order train, but Joe Biden is really kind of, on the law and order train in the sense that he has spoken out a few times against, the rioting and the looting, but he's also at least cognizant of the fact that there's a family, Jacob Blake's family, who's, they've had a terrible tragedy. He's at least trying to speak to that side of it and know that there's a larger picture when it comes to police brutality and the relationship between African Americans and the police. Trump really hasn't touched that issue at all. He said, he thought the tragedy was terrible for the Blake family. But when he went to Kenosha, he met with law enforcement. I'm not sure if he met with other leaders and activists in the community, but when he went to Kenosha, he did announce that he was going to, provide $1 million in emergency support to Kenosha law enforcement and $13 million to law enforcement agencies just in Wisconsin in general. And so to me, that really tells you where Trump's focus is. I understand if you think that this just doesn't happen anymore and we're really focusing a lot on rioting and protesting, but there's a larger reason for those protesters to be out there. They're not just out there to burn things down for the sake of it. No. They're there because a tragedy happened, a tragedy we've seen play out so many different times. And, when Donald Trump comes to town and tours the damage and walks around and only focuses on the negative part and trying to fix that, to me, you're just prolonging the problem. We're going to be here again. And the only reason I think that he's in Kenosha trying to, buddy with law enforcement, not that he shouldn't, is that, he thinks this will help him electorally. He thinks this is going to play out in the polls and help his poll numbers. And I think, again, this is the problem that black people have with politicians and people who come to our neighborhoods and try this whole law and order thing. It's not that we don't want police on the street. We also want folks to focus on the issues that bring about us having to come in contact with police so often, and it often ends in tragedy. People gloss over those tragedies and say, well, you're going about protesting the wrong way. You're too angry. You're rioting, you're looting, not understanding this has been a hundreds-year problem, a generational problem that America just hasn't really tried to tackle it in a serious way. And what you see with Trump is he's still not going to try to tackle it. He's going to go for the law and order. We're going to have $13 million for law enforcement agencies. Why can't we get some of that money to go into the neighborhoods where Jacob Blake was living? Like, why can't we get that same support?
Exactly. No, you're exactly right. It's anybody who tries to support Donald, he yet again misses another opportunity to be a leader, to be the president, to bring people together. Because instead of coming to Kenosha and saying, "Hey, I understand that we're upset. I'm upset. I don't want there to be violence in our streets. I don't want our Black and brown people killed. But we gotta have some structure. We can't have anarchy. We're a democracy. We're a country set up on rules. We can't have the looting. We can't have the burning of buildings. But at the same time, we can't have law enforcement killing Black people unarmed for no reason, escalating the problem without trying to see other ways that they can take care of it. That's the message we need from the president. That's the message that's going to de-escalate all the violence and take away a lot of the tension and help to fix some of this racial issue that we have in America. But if you have a president who every time we talk about this, he points to the violence, the looting, the rioting. That's why you see that polling of the Black Lives Matter movement going down, because Donald Trump has pretty much aligned this issue with, well, if you give Black people more rights, they're going to just burn your cities down. If you give Black people more rights, they're just gonna, destroy your businesses. They're going to, they're just going to disrupt your entire community. I mean, that's basically the whole message. I mean, when he ran in 2016, it was build the wall. We're going to keep the caravan out. Now 2020, he's trying to keep Americans out. It's insane to me what he's trying to do with this issue, rather than rise above the occasion and actually presidential. Because I mean, honestly, this is a no-brainer. I mean, this is a tee up for a president to just come out and say, all right, this is something I'm going to do. I'm going to champion this. This is something that the Trump administration can be known to have been forever fixed. Really tried to take a stance in police justice, criminal justice reform, racial equality. You could be, in the last 3 months, you could be remembered as someone who, messed up the first, 3.5 years, but somehow you drank a little bit of Kool-Aid and you woke up. But he didn't want to do that for some reason. He would rather compare what the officers did to golf. It's so bad whenever you have people like Laura Ingraham trying to tell him, hey, Donald, you're not, comparing a shooting to a golf, somebody just choking up, with par. It's just ludicrous and ridiculous to have somebody like this miss such a great opportunity to help people like us. He says he's not racist. He says that he loves Black people. He's got a bunch of Black friends. How about you start helping some of these Black people out?
He wasn't trying to work for the Black vote. I understand he's done some things that people will say for African Americans, but largely, this is an opportunity to say, hey, I hear you, I feel your pain. This is what we can try to do to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And, so Biden had a private meeting with Jacob Blake's family, and they were in Milwaukee, and then he went to Kenosha later that day. This was on Thursday. Now, Trump came on Tuesday, and Trump was questioned about, meeting with Jacob Blake's family. And I think they were supposed to maybe have a phone call, but Trump said he didn't want to take the call because the family had asked for lawyers to be on that call. And I guess he just didn't feel comfortable with lawyers being on the call. I'm not entirely sure why he decided not to talk to the family, but as of right now, he hasn't. He has not spoken to their family. But as far as, what this is going to do and his response to it, as far as his poll numbers, Trump has really harped on Democratic-run cities. And so he has actually, in the same vein of his response to the protests, he's now saying he's going to defund cities like New York and D.C., Portland, and Seattle. He's even started instructing the government to start the process of defunding these cities and finding ways to redirect money to different places. And this could have all kinds of ramifications. I mean, you're talking about cities that are already struggling with the budget shortfall because of the coronavirus pandemic, and they're just going to worsen an already bad situation by trying to redirect funding. Now, it's not entirely clear if Trump has the power to do that, because Congress typically is the one who decides where money goes to and how it's funded, and they decide the budget, really. The president can propose it, but Congress is actually one who holds those purse strings. But the fact that Trump is even threatening this, really, just to me, folks really harped on defund the police. We need our police, but you're okay with defunding whole cities? Because the president, has this idea that there's just so much rampant crime and violence because we've seen it on TV. But in reality, that doesn't match up. There was a new study that came out from Harvard Capps. It was a Harvard Capps Harris poll. This is a separate study. Sorry. This was on the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project. Very long name. But this organization tracked political violence around the world, and they tracked the Black Lives Matter protests from this year. And in between May and the end of August, that particular organization documented over 7,000 demonstrations, associated with the Black Lives Matter movement. And we covered this on Thursday, but Black Lives Matter, the movement, and the organization are really two different things. But there were about, 7,700 demonstrations associated with Black Lives Matter, the movement, and they were happening in like 2,000 different locations. But what they found was that the overwhelming majority of those protests were peaceful. Of course, we saw the violence shown to us on TV, but that was amplified because it was being shown, nonstop. So it makes you feel like things are much more dangerous than they really are. And so about a third, I think over 90% of those protests were actually peaceful. Like I said, it was a very small percentage that were, violent and had turned into riots, particularly from folks who were coming in and inciting this violence here. But Black Lives Matter is not a terrorist organization like the president and others want to paint it as. And this idea that democratic cities are just overrun with violence because of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, it's just not true. Like, you can run on that, but it doesn't match reality, and that's probably why it's not really showing in polling that this is really an effective strategy.
No, I mean, you look at the polling, I mean, it has, Joe Biden is up, and it's because a lot of people, when they look at how Donald Trump is saying, I'm gonna, make our cities better, well, all of the advertising he's using, the video footage, it's what's going on right now in Donald Trump's America. It's not, what's going on, because, Joe Biden, he didn't have a job right now. He's not in office. He doesn't have any political power like that. So it's your America, Mr. President, and what he's trying to do is just show people that America is burning, and he's supposed to be the savior to come in and fix this issue. But, he's been in office and he hasn't addressed it. Anytime you ask him, what was the issue in Kenosha, and he's going to point to the burning of the businesses, the looting, and the violence. He doesn't point to the issue that there's systemic racism. He doesn't point to the issue that there needs to be structural change in the way police view, Black and brown people. It's, it's just another missed opportunity, and it's sad to hear the president try to criticize people for the Black Lives Matter organization. Because I was watching Fox News where Carl Tuckerson was talking about prosecuting these people, and you have, I believe, I think he was acting Secretary of Homeland Security. It was like, I speak to AG Barr every day about this kind of stuff, that we're trying to, prosecute these people because they're, terrorists. But, they're, as Devin just said, viewers, by and large, very peaceful. The unfortunate part is that anybody can use their name. So if it does get a little bit violent, then they just get to kind of have the heat of it. But the issue is very plain and clear. Even to, this week, we had yet again another issue with, a Black death in New York, which just happened back in March. But we're just now seeing a lot of the video footage where Daniel Prue had mental illnesses, and officers put a spit hood over him and, killed him. And it just goes to show how the whole message from Donald Trump and Joe Biden, when it comes to policing, we've got to figure out how to reimagine our police force. We got to figure out how our police force can better serve our community, and we got to figure out how we can partner professionals with law enforcement, because law enforcement aren't trained to handle mental illness problems. But if we get somebody who's actually trained to go out there and assist them, we may not have issues like this. So that should be the takeaway for both parties. When we were talking about this justice, we need to have reforms. We don't need to, it's fine to meet with the family, it's fine to meet with officials, but you need to be pushing reforms at this point.
Exactly, and I think that's the challenge for Joe Biden, is that we appreciate, calling out the tragedy that happened and being, kind of that calming voice and having that sympathy and empathy that we don't see from a Donald Trump. That's all fine and good, but if there's no action behind that, then that's kind of a moot point. Like, we've seen this movie before where tragedies happen, Democratic candidates come out and they say, oh my gosh, it's so bad, we're sorry, we're going to try to fix this. But when they get to Congress, they forget about it and we move on to the next thing. And so that is the challenge for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, is there going to be real change behind this? And as the electorate, as black people and African Americans, we have to hold them accountable. We have to hold Joe Biden accountable for those words that, we're going to try to, really fix and study the impact of what he calls America's original sin, which was slavery. Some people say the original sin was what we did to the Indians, with kicking them out and taking their territory, and that was a massacre in itself. But we are still dealing with the echoes of what happened with slavery and what we did to Native Americans. And so
they're both kind of the same.
They are, and they're both tragedies, and where countless lives were lost because some people twisted the idea of what they wanted America to be. Everybody wasn't free, even though we were writing documents to say that everybody was supposed to be free. But we have to hold them accountable. I appreciate Joe Biden and what he's doing, but we have to hold him accountable and make sure that investments and resources are put into our neighborhoods, and that we really try to tackle the issue of how police officers are trained to handle incidents like what happened with Jacob Blake, and incidents of mental illness like you mentioned with the man in Rochester, New York. We're going to talk about it later, but there has to be a real good faith effort to try to fix those things. Otherwise, we're going to be back here. There are going to be more protests, more riots, more Jacob Blakes. Unfortunately, he's extremely likely to still have his life, although he will be paralyzed. He's likely to be alive and tell the story of actually what happened. So, AJ, got any last thoughts before we go into break?
No, I think we've hit a lot on this, and as we know, this is an ongoing investigation. We're going to be putting some more updates and making sure that everyone's aware, because unfortunately 2020 is a year of not only the coronavirus but also misinformation. So we want to make sure we can bring y'all some facts behind this. So we can go ahead and take our break, Devin.
All right. The last thing I'll point out is that as far as if Donald Trump's message is working, we did get that new Harvard Capps Harris poll that showed Biden maintaining his 7-point lead. And interestingly enough, I know this is one poll, but they asked folks, who do you think would do a better job on establishing law and order? And actually, Joe Biden had 56% of that vote compared to 48%. So people actually think Joe Biden might be the one who's better at establishing law and order, even though Donald Trump is the man who's trying to run on the message to be tough on crime and moving protesters so he can take pictures in front of churches. Interestingly enough, the voters may not necessarily be buying it, but we'll have to see. It is one poll, but that is very interesting. So with that, we're going to take our very first break, and when we come back, we're going to cover some news about Facebook and political ads and some of the action that they are taking to combat misinformation and some of the things that we saw in the 2016 campaign. So stick with us. We'll be right back. audio back on? All right. Sorry about that. So we're coming back in from break, and we're going to kind of cover some big news that we heard from Facebook. And this is going to have some big implications for the election. And so, of course, we went through 2016, and we did know that Russia was interfering in the election, creating political ads, especially ones that were very divisive and helped to sow some dissent here in the country around things like Hillary Clinton and what in her emails and things like that. But this week on Thursday, Facebook actually announced that they are going to ban any new political advertisements from its platform in the week leading up to the November election. So the week leading up to November 3rd, Facebook is actually going to ban any new political advertisements, and new is a key word there, as an effort to combat misinformation about voting. And I think, Adrian, we are in this environment now where anyone can be a news source. Anyone can start a website, write up an article, and post it on Facebook, and it almost looks legitimate, even though the information is false. And Facebook has really came under fire after the 2016 election about how they were handling that misinformation. So I think, I'm glad to see this. I don't know if it's going to necessarily work because it is just for new political advertisements, but at least it is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's something that we need because, as we keep saying, misinformation is very popular this year for some reason. One of the things that I saw, or I guess we saw rather, is that Facebook officials are going to be partnering with state election authorities to help identify and remove false claims about polling conditions. It's really nice to help get the information out, because I think this year, Donald and his team is going to continue the message that they're doing, which is to sow distrust in elections. So I think it's really important to have, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We need every social media platform to be doing this, because the rationale makes sense. I mean, you're basically, you're not going to have enough time to fact check and, rebut, Donald's lies if you allow him to kind of keep posting all the way up to the election. And I mean, it doesn't just, as a slight to Donald Trump, it's anybody. Because we understand that there's a lot of different, people who are trying to sow tension into our communities, and we don't need that. We need, like I said, we need better, stronger Facebook regulations and all social media. So I'm happy to see that this is going to be something. I'm almost more intrigued about the stuff on Capitol Hill, Devin. I mean, I think the stuff with Facebook and them taking some efforts to make sure that, their platform is has some sort of levers and checks and balances on it is great, because we need that. Because as you said, any and everybody can, start a website. Any and everybody can create a profile on Facebook and say they're an American and start posting anything they want to. But what we really need is what's happening on Capitol Hill, which is, Moscow Mitch blocking all of these bills for election security. And again, viewers, I understand that, he's Senate Majority Leader, and, that's a very respectable title. If I ever get in that position, I would like people, address me, but I'm going to make sure I serve people rather than try to serve Russia and serve Donald Trump to be some sort of sycophant. So that's why we're making sure to address people in the way that they're acting, because for some reason they haven't rose to the challenge to, rid us of this Trumpism. So back to Moscow Mitch, there's been a lot of reporting of him just blocking all of these election security bills, and you just wonder why. If Facebook, that it's a profit company, is trying to make a precedent to control things and help us out, where they're trying to worry about their bottom line. Well, shouldn't our Congress, who doesn't care about profits, shouldn't they be concerned about this too? So, Devin, I'll let you, before I talk too much about this, I'll let you pick up on this, because this mess here is crazy.
Right. And you would think after 2016 there would be an appetite to ensure that these things didn't happen again. Because it's not like Russia's going to be like, well, we did it in 16, we're just going to take 2020 off. No, they're going to do it again. Like, they're going to create these ads that are false, and that their only purpose is to divide people. We saw this. And it may not necessarily be to get people to vote for Donald Trump. The goal in 2016 was to get people not to vote at all. Make Hillary Clinton such a toxic choice that folks just stayed at home and it worked. And so, as far as Mitch McConnell, I know you said they're not supposed to be, thinking about profits, but if you know anything about our political system, there's a lot of money going around to different places. So in a lot of ways, he is thinking about the dollar bill and what he needs to do to ensure that he stays in power. So I'm not entirely sure why he's blocking all of these bills, things that would help, try to make the election a little bit more safer. There was a bill that Charles Schumer had tried to get consent to pass. It was a bill that required the use of paper ballots, and it included funding for the Election Assistance Commission. And it passed the House with a pretty good margin and had one Republican voting for it. But of course, it came to a nice stop in the Speaker's Speaker's office, and it has not moved anywhere since. But there have been some changes since 2016 as we get ready for the 2020 election. In 2017, the Department of Homeland Security actually designated election systems as a critical infrastructure, allowing prioritization for requesting election support from state and local officials. Much needed. The military actually lost its first cyber operation to block Russians who were trying to meddle in the election. They established the U.S. Cyber Command. So their job is to fight off these, really attackers who are trying to influence the election. But of course, it's hard to do that when there's so much disinformation being spread just inside the country. You can try to fight people who are abroad, but there's a lot of misinformation floating around in just our own country being spouted by the president and a lot of people in his party. And so a lot of people, even Donald Trump and the GOP, have confused people on who the new threat is now. They're now saying that China is the new thing that we need to worry about, not Russia. Again, you can take what you want from that, but there was one country who definitely interfered in one of our elections, and that was not China. That was obviously Russia. Now, China does some things. They steal a lot of intellectual property, but Russia was the one who was actually creating fake Facebook ads and groups and pages with the intent to get Donald Trump elected. I don't see why they wouldn't try it again. I know Facebook is taking some steps to try to fight misinformation. Interestingly enough, they're going to try to put a limit on how many times you can forward a story. I think they're going to cut it down so you can only forward it to one person instead of like mass forwarding to everybody who's your friend. So those are good things. We're just going to have to stay vigilant and make sure when you read things on Facebook and social media, you're checking the source, you're reading the story to make sure it's actually accurate.
Yeah, that's exactly right, viewers. Devin is making a good point. We all have a computer at our fingertips, and we got smartphones. You can be fact checkers so easily. When you have an Attorney General, I don't even know if we should even say Attorney General Barr. I don't know. I think he's got a nickname too because he's not an Attorney General for the people. But even after the entire intelligence community has said that Russia is out to get our election system. Robert Mueller did a whole investigation. 2 years, spent millions of dollars, and the main conclusion was that Russia, meddled in our elections, and they're going to continue to do it. Why are we trying to say that China, I don't know if Donald Trump is trying to do that because he's trying to say, Kung flu virus, China virus, and now he's trying to put more heat on them. I don't know if that's the case. A little bit when he was in the impeachment, it was Ukraine that was meddling in our elections. So it's always a deflect game with this administration. It's always trying to say, I'm not, this person. It's Joe Biden, the one that's, the lawless president, the one that's making all the money while he's in office, the one whose children are profiting while he's in office. He's just trying to deflect all of that. So viewers, don't be fooled by this stuff. You have power because your senators, your congressmen, they depend upon your vote to stay in office. Call, email, text, if you live in Kentucky, call, email, and text Mitch and be like, hey, we got an election coming up. Why are you not trying to secure our election? Why are you, trying to be a grim reaper and kill those bills that are actually going to promote the American democracy and promote, people speaking their voices? You have the power, people, to speak out, and they have to listen to you, or else they're going to have to find another day job. So One other thing I wanted to make sure, because we're talking about this election security, we actually are going to be doing an interview with the county official from Fulton County, which is where Atlanta, Georgia is. We're going to just lay it down what's going on, because again, people have been trying to scare you to not vote this year, trying to scare you to not use vote by mail. But again, don't be fooled. We're going to bring you the facts. We're going to try to make sure you're aware of what's going on, because we need everybody's voices heard this year.
It's up to us to fight the misinformation and make sure that we're not sharing things that we shouldn't be, things that aren't true. You know, we all are in our corners, so we want to question things, and that's healthy. But we have to really make sure that we aren't spreading misinformation, you know, thinking that we're doing the right thing. So with that, we're going to take our next break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the other big story from this week. There's a lot of things going on this week, but the big story of the week was the article from The Atlantic talking about Donald Trump and some comments that he made about soldiers who had lost their life in combat. So we're going to come back and talk about that and see if there is some truth to this, and see if, you know, what the president's response has been. So stick with us, and we'll be right back.
All right, viewers, let's go ahead and get back into this segment here. So we've got this report from The Atlantic where we have, a president who has come out and said, I'm, the best president that the military's had, done the most that any other president's ever done for them. But yet you have a report where, Donald Trump thinks fallen soldiers are suckers and losers. And, the president and his administration, his press secretary can say whatever they want. But you have reports from New York Times, Washington Post, you even have Fox News. I mean, I sent this, viewers, I sent a picture to Devin, whenever I saw Fox News get on there and corroborate the story. I said, that's when you know it's bad, because, Fox News is his think tank almost. I mean, they probably pull strings in the administration. But you even have people like them confirming all these reports. It's appalling. I mean, Joe Biden said it perfect. It's deplorable. It's un-American. It's unpatriotic. It's unfit for someone who's supposed to be commander in chief. I mean, you've had countless people who come out and said that this is wrong. I mean, regardless of what the president can say, I didn't say that. There's been a lot of proof of his comments, to the military in the past. So it's just like, this isn't anything uncommon of somebody who mocks, the disabled, somebody who doesn't mind kids being in cages, someone who doesn't, who would deny a sexual allegation by saying the woman's not even his type. This is not uncharacteristic of this guy, viewers, for him to think that, amputees are disgusting and shouldn't be around him. This is not hard for us to imagine that Donald Trump couldn't say something like this. I mean, this isn't a surprise to anybody. This is just us confirming more and more. And it should be more and more proof that if you're someone in the military, I don't know how you can support this, this guy, because I've got, people in my family who've served in wars, who are, who are with the National Guard, and they're not, for this. So I don't understand, how anybody could be behind this. So, Devin, this is where it is. From what we gather, a lot of reporting has confirmed, the Atlantic's report. So, Donald can do what he wants to try to, bury this issue. It's not going anywhere.
No, it's not. And this is a huge problem if you're Donald Trump, because, like you say, Fox News confirmed parts of what he said. And at issue, there's one thing, and so he went to Paris, and during his trip to Paris, he was asked to go to a cemetery that had about, I think it's about 800, 1,800 fallen soldiers from World War I. And Trump didn't. They say Trump didn't want to go because it was raining. He was worried about it messing his hair up. And then he may have also said, why would I go visit those losers? They're suckers in a way. And that part is up to speculation. But Fox News confirmed that when they were planning this military parade a couple of years ago, they were, thinking about having wounded veterans participate in the parade, and Trump literally said, America doesn't want to see that. And so you're talking about folks who went to war and lost limbs, and the president, who's supposed to be the commander-in-chief, is literally saying, we don't want the American public to see these folks. They don't want to see that. Why would we show them? What do you mean, why would we show them? They gave their life and their limbs for the rest of us. They did something that most of the population doesn't do, and something the president himself wouldn't do. He supposedly said he had bone spurs, and that's why he couldn't go fight in Vietnam. And then he turns around as president and commander-in-chief and calls those people who went and fought in Vietnam suckers. And so this has been corroborated by the Associated Press, Fox News, and you've also seen the Washington Post. All have confirmed that Trump made these comments at one point or another. And I think it's interesting that you've really seen almost the entire administration come out and say that this is just patently false. You saw Donald Trump having Melania go out and release a story on Breitbart saying that this is patently false. We've never seen that type of response from the administration before. You could say maybe this isn't true, but when we have video of the president saying that John McCain wasn't a war hero because he was caught, I think it's plausible that this man may have actually called fallen soldiers suckers and losers.
Yeah, I mean, Devin, this guy doesn't understand sacrifice, doesn't understand how he thinks that these people are suckers because they didn't do a more lucrative job. They decided to go into the service. That's awful of someone in that high of a position. And viewers, we have to, let our military people know that we love them, we respect them, we adore them, because they're doing things that I'm not bold enough to do, because I don't have that sort of level of courage and bravery to put my life on the line for the country. But it's awesome that we have certain individuals who don't mind doing that, who don't mind taking that mantle and saying, I'm going to fight for my country, I'm going to fight to keep democracy strong. But you have Donald Trump, where, his fixer, Michael Cohen, was telling the Military Times in his 2019 story that Donald Trump faked all those injuries. I mean, you can, I think there was a 2011 Freedom of Information Act on the Smoking Gun website that talked about, Donald Trump's elective service record. So, I mean, it's out there where you can go and fact check it, and you can fact check him. And, whenever you tweet something, you can lay it out and make it known, because this guy is just going back to what Devin's saying with John McCain. Senator John McCain is known throughout the world for being a respected war hero because of what he went through. I mean, I can't imagine being held as a POW for that long a period of time, and staying true to who you are and staying true to America. And then you have this guy, Donald Trump, who, dodged the drive, who calls military veterans suckers and losers, ridiculing John McCain, trying to say that, the only thing that he did for me was I tried to, raise some money for his campaign, but he lost, so it didn't make any sense. You had him, I think there was a report, cover up the USS John McCain when he was doing a visit there. I mean, this guy is terrible. And you even have it to where the newspaper, the Stars and Stripes, they've been trying to gut that, even though that bipartisan support has been for that, giving that money to make sure that the military has a news outlet by military, for military. But you have an administration who's been trying to pretty much cut any sort of free speech because they want to control what we're getting told. You had the people at the GOP convention saying, well, Joe Biden's trying to tell you how to think. Joe Biden's trying to tell you how to live. No, people, again, Donald Trump is trying to deflect and point all that stuff that he's doing on somebody else. He's the one that's trying to control the way we think and act. He's the one that's trying to be the monarch for the United States of America and trying to pretty much stifle the voice of every free person. But, because of this report from The Atlantic, you saw him and the administration backtrack saying, oh, we're not going to cut the newspaper, even though we've been trying to do it all this time. It's all about politics. It's all about this guy trying to stay in office. He sees the polls. That's all he cares about, because to him, polls are like ratings, just like when he was with The Apprentice. So he's watching those every day. He's making sure that's probably, as soon as he wakes up, he doesn't get his daily briefing. He just probably looks at poll numbers, and that's a shame. So again, people, this story isn't to place some sort of ridicule on Trump. He does enough of that on his own. This story is to say that if we're going to be a country, about the American dream, home of the free, land of the brave, things of that nature, we got to support our military. We got to speak out against anything like this. And we can't support anybody that talks and this and tolerates this sort of behavior.
Exactly. And I think, because of his comments about John McCain, that he, it's plausible to think that's what exactly.
Hey, Devin, you're muted, by the way.
Yeah, I'm muted. You can't hear me, but okay. Yeah. So I got some comments that I had an echo, so I'm going to mute myself in the Zoom call, and hopefully that fixes the echo, because it's going to go out through the software. But I think it's plausible that Donald Trump said everything that's in this story, because of what we have a videotape about what he said about John McCain. So with that, I think the other question is, what does this mean for the election? I mean, this is a Category 5 hurricane right now for Donald Trump, because you just he's trying to get his law and order message in. The polling isn't quite reflecting that it's working, and now you have this story about veterans and saying that they're suckers and losers to what is a large part of his base, and people who are independents who may not be, maybe on the fence about voting for either him or Joe Biden. And so I think this is his response to it. You could say he's just saying it's totally false and everything like that. But I'm interested to see if he's ever going to apologize for the things that he said about John McCain. I don't think he will. That's just not Donald Trump's nature.
No,
but it could go a long way and maybe kind of, smoothing over the ruffles to this story. Because he said some things about John McCain. I mean, even in the story, they said he really did not want to lower the flags to have staff after John McCain died. I mean, that shows the disdain he had for John McCain. He really did not like him. Even though John McCain could have lost his life fighting for this country, a country that Donald Trump was allowed to live like a billionaire and go around, bankrupting casinos, he has this disdain for him because John McCain was critiquing him. He was criticizing Donald Trump. He was not just this passive follower who didn't have an opinion. John McCain was his own man. He's the maverick, and he has his own opinion. He did not bow to Donald Trump like he wanted him to, so Trump made him out to be an enemy. But those comments are now really coming back to haunt him because he could be alienating a large part of his base and folks who voted for him in 2016 who may be already unsure. This could kind of be like one more thing to say Donald Trump is just not fit for the office.
I completely agree. This is just one more example of how Donald Trump doesn't respect people who've given to our country, because he hasn't done anything for our country, nor has he done anything for anybody else other than himself. Even when Congressman John Lewis passed away, he wouldn't even acknowledge that he was a great person. He was just like, oh, well, he didn't come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union address. And that's basically how he looks at John McCain. John McCain stood out against him, voted against I think the Republican health care bill. So I mean, it's just showing that people have to stand up, wake up, be patriots. Know that what we're living through is kind of like the Twilight Zone or whatever. It seems like like Devin said, the upside down from Stranger Things. But November is coming. If you ever watch Game of Thrones, November is coming. We gotta prepare for it, people. There's many ways to get us ready. I don't know what else is. Like I said, again, we're not trying to vilify Donald because he does a good job of that himself. But for some reason, he's always wanting to be the latest in the breaking news of the week. So we got to make we lay it down for you. So unless Devin's got any more comments, we're going to go into our break and go ahead and do our quick hit section after that.
No, that's it. That's a good way to end this segment. So like Adrian says, we're going to come back with some quick hits, some news from around the country that you may have missed out on. So we're going to kind of cover those very quickly and then get you out of here. So again, you're listening to the Black Agenda Podcast. We'll be right back after this break. All right, welcome back. So we're going to get into our quick hits, which, like I said, is going to be news from around the country, things that you may have missed. And so the very first story we're going to talk about is one that has been causing a lot of controversy, particularly in California, but it's called State Bill 145. And so it passed the California House this week. And there's been lots of controversy as far as what this bill actually does. And so from what we can understand, the bill helps to strengthen their sex offender registry and end the discrimination against the LGBTQ community when it comes to having to register as a sex offender. So State Bill 145 does not apply to any intercourse of any kind with minors who are younger than 14. It doesn't apply to any kind of intercourse with minors who are younger than 14. I just said that one, but it's also applicable if the adult is within 10 years of age of the minor. So the problem with this is that in California, if someone has a relationship with a minor and they're within 10 years of their age, they can appeal to a judge who could then say that they don't have to register as a sex offender. Now, this bill, State Bill 145, extended that, the ability to appeal to a judge to not have you register as a sex offender. It expanded that to the LGBTQ community, because beforehand, if you were a gay man or a gay woman in a relationship with someone who was younger and you were convicted, you had to automatically register as a sex offender. This bill changed that to kind of even out the rules. Now, of course, there were all kind of widespread conspiracies saying that this was going to lessen the penalty for being convicted as a sex offender, but that is just not true. It just was kind of evening out the rules when it comes to the LGBT community and heterosexuals.
Yeah, and just to kind of wrap up a little bit about this double voting news that we've been hearing, Donald Trump is continuing to encourage people to vote twice. That's a felony in a lot of states. I tried to do a little bit of fact checking to see if there was like a federal law on that, and I couldn't find it, but I know in several states that's a felony. You're not supposed to vote twice. It's not, you send in a mail-in ballot, and then you go to the polls and do another one just to kind of make sure your other one was counted. No, we got to trust our elections. That's why it's so important right now more than ever that we put money into the Postal Service, that we put money into making sure that our election security is there, making sure local places have enough poll workers, enough drop boxes, enough security to make sure that those drop boxes don't get touched or anything like that. So don't listen to Donald Trump. The North Carolina, whenever he did his rally there, their election commission came out and said, hey, don't do that. We agree that, the president's trying to tell you to vote, but don't do what he said. Just vote once and trust that your vote will be counted. There were several ways for you to go and track that your voice was heard. So do that. Make sure you go vote.
All right, and now next story is going to be about the debates and moderators for this year's election. So that was released this week, and the schedule is as follows. So the very first debate is going to be on September 29th. So here in about 3 weeks, we'll have our first debate, and the moderator for that debate is going to be Chris Wallace of Fox News, who's very good. I'm a fan of Chris Wallace. He's very, very good at what he does. And then the second debate is going to be the VP debate. That's going to be on October 7th. And the moderator is going to be Susan Age of USA Today, and that's going to involve Mike Pence and Kamala Harris, so we get to see Kamala Harris in action. And then our second debate, or the second presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, is going to be on October 15th, so about a week after that VP debate. They'll be on C-SPAN, and it'll be Steve Scully of C-SPAN who's going to be the moderator there. And then the last presidential debate is going to be on October 22nd, and that's going to have Kristen Walker of NBC News as the moderator. So we have 4 debates. We have 1 VP debate and 3 presidential debates, one on September 29th, October 15th, and October 22nd.
And with these debates, Devin, I'm definitely looking forward to bringing our listeners and our viewers some facts behind that. I don't know if we'll have to be fact checkers during the debates. I feel like we'd be working too hard for no money, but maybe we can do something like that. On to a little bit of vaccine news. So Trump says that the vaccine is going to be out before the election, which I think is only to kind of stir that he's going to be the person to get us out of the coronavirus pandemic. But we've kind of seen how that's happened since December. We even have the CDC and the FDA, who appear to be more polarized and more political than ever before because they're not listening to the facts and the science, and they're kind of trying to rush it. We did have the FDA commissioner come out and kind of backtrack and say, well, actually, whatever we do is going to be based on the data. But whenever you've got his boss, Donald, saying that we're going to have a vaccine out by the election, that doesn't really support what the commissioner's saying. You have the World Health Organization did state, though, realistically, vaccine probably isn't going to be ready for mass production until mid-2021. So though we may be ready to go ahead and get back on track and get everybody medicated and vaccinated, we got to be realistic on this. If you want up-to-date coverage on the vaccination process or progress rather, you actually can visit the New York Times Coronavirus Vaccine Tracker. They have a live update of which vaccines are on which stage and where they're at as far as human trials. So make sure that you're aware of that. Again, don't listen to Donald, listen to the facts and the science.
Good advice there. So our next story is going to be surrounding Chadwick Boseman, who just passed away about a week ago. So in his hometown, there's a resident who's actually working to erect a statue of Chadwick Boseman in his honor. And the mayor has actually confirmed that plans are actually underway to try to erect a statue. The residents wanted to replace the Confederate statue to make it just that much more better, but that is actually up to the state legislature. So we'll see what happens there, but it is very nice, a very cool gesture, to erect a statue of someone who gave us some incredible films and movies, all while juggling, chemotherapy and surgeries. He did all that while giving us movies like 42. Black Panther, of course, is one he's known for, but he gave us Marshall as well. So some really blockbuster movies, all while, juggling and dealing with the cancer that he was fighting. So there it is. Chadwick Boseman, residents in his hometown, are hoping to erect a statue in his honor.
And our last little quick hit, just so you know, early voting is already happening. We have North Carolina. I think they mailed out a lot of ballots. I think they had over 600,000 above what they had last presidential election. So people are really taking this thing serious to make sure their voices are heard, and they want to do it in a way that's going to be safe, that doesn't get them exposed to coronavirus. If you want to know more about early voting in your state, there's, obviously just Google early voting. They actually have a website you can go to. It's www.vote.org/early voting calendar. So that way you can actually get some up-to-date early voting rules in your state. A lot of states have expanded, mail-in and absentee ballots. So we want to make sure that this year you get your voice heard, you do it in a healthy way. Don't risk your lives to have your voice heard, because there are different ways for you to vote. So make sure you do your research. And just like they're saying on NBC, it's voting season. So plan your vote rather than just trying to make it an afterthought.
Absolutely. That's an excellent way to end the show. I think this year I'm hoping turnout is going to be way, way up, maybe even over 2008. When President Barack Obama ran. I think we're on pace. I'm hoping for a record turnout this year, which is great, which is what we need. I wish this would happen every year. But, like they always say, this is the biggest election of our lives. So take that to heart and show up on November 3rd.
Listeners, it really is. It's I think that everyone has said this is about the soul of America, because this isn't about a referendum on Donald Trump. It's really about where we want to take our country, and if we would prefer to go back how we were in the 50s and the 60s of, white America, black America, or if we just want to have one America and we all work to have progress.
Exactly. So again, that's it for our show today. This is our second live episode of the Black Agenda Podcast. If you want to hear us on just audio, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, even iHeartRadio. We're on there. Anywhere that you listen to music and podcasts, you can find us. We're also on YouTube now. You can just Google the Black Agenda or Black Agenda Pod. We're on YouTube now. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Black Agenda Pod. So make sure you like us, share this video. Let us know what you thought about the show in the comments. Give us a thumbs up and everything to let us know that you're enjoying it. And so, like Adrian also mentioned in the show, next week we'll be speaking with an election commissioner in Atlanta for Fulton County, Georgia. We'll be talking to him about election security. And then coming up later this month, we'll be speaking to Mary Frances Winters about her new book about Black fatigue and the fight against racism and what that does to the mind. So that's going to be coming up at the end of this month. So we got some big interviews coming. So make sure you stick with us, follow us, subscribe to us so you don't miss out. So thank you for tuning in. Adrian, you got any last thoughts?
No, only thing I was going to say is viewers and listeners, you can now actually donate to our cause. We're trying to be able to give out scholarships. We're also trying to be able to work with different nonprofits to advance these different causes, whether it be education, police reform, doesn't matter. So you can actually donate directly from Patreon, which is Patron. Just go to that. We actually have a little account. It's patreon.com/Black Agenda Pod. And you can actually donate. And we have a bunch of different gifts for you. You may have a business and you want to advertise. You might even want to appear on our show and talk to us one day. Yeah. There's a bunch of different rewards in there for our monthly patrons. So be sure to check that out so you can help us spread our mission even further.
All right. And with that, we'll catch you guys next Saturday. We'll be live at 2 p.m. this time, Central Standard Time. So make sure you mark your calendars. Find us on Facebook. So until then, we'll catch you next time.